Failure is not final. It's part of the process. This is a truth that we all need to remind ourselves of, especially in those moments when things don't go the way we hoped. It's so easy to feel like one setback, one rejection, one wrong decision disqualifies us from what's ahead. But the reality is failure is not the end. It's often the beginning of a new chapter, a deeper understanding, a stronger version of you. Think about the stories we admire, the inventors, the leaders, the dreamers. They didn't get everything right the first time. In fact, many of them failed more times than they succeeded. What set them apart wasn't perfection. It was perseverance. It was the decision to look at failure not as a stop sign, but as a stepping stone. It was understanding that growth happens not in the comfort of success, but in the discomfort of mistakes. We live in a culture that glorifies instant success. Social media shows us the highlight reels, the breakthrough moment, the celebration, the finished product. But what we don't always see are the late nights, the doubts, the failures behind the scenes. What we don't see are the tears shed in private, the times someone almost gave up, the quiet moments when it seemed like nothing was working. But those are the moments that shape a person. That's where the roots grow deep. That's where character is built. You may have tried something and it didn't work out. Maybe you launched a business and it didn't get off the ground. Maybe you applied for a job and they chose someone else. Maybe you poured your heart into a relationship that ended in heartbreak. Now you're wondering if you should have ever tried in the first place. Let me tell you, just because it didn't work out doesn't mean it was a waste. Every experience, every challenge, every failure teaches you something valuable. It strengthens your resolve, it sharpens your vision, and it prepares you for what's ahead. There's a story in Scripture about Peter, one of Jesus' closest disciples. Peter was bold. He had great intention. But when Jesus was arrested, Peter denied knowing him 3 times. Can you imagine the weight of that failure? The shame, the disappointment in himself. But what's powerful is that failure didn't define Peter. It didn't disqualify him. In fact, Jesus restored him. And later, Peter went on to become one of the foundational leaders of the early church. What looked like the end of Peter's story was just the turning point. That's how it works in our lives, too. Just because you failed doesn't mean you were a failure. There's a difference. Failing is something that happens to you. It's not who you are. You are not your mistakes. You are not your missteps. You are a work in progress being shaped and molded by every experience, even the hard ones. Sometimes failure is just feedback. It's a course correction. It shows us what needs to change. It opens our eyes to things we couldn't see before. And often it pushes us to grow in ways we never would have if everything had gone smoothly. The discomfort of failure can produce a strength in you that smooth sailing never could. When a child is learning to walk, we don't scold them for falling. We don't say, "You should give up. You're not cut out for this walking thing." No, we cheer them on. We encourage them to try again. And little by little, they get stronger. Their balance improves, their confidence grows. And eventually, what once seemed impossible becomes second nature. That's how your journey works too. Every time you stumble, you're learning. You're improving. Isn't something to be feared or avoided? Something to be feared or avoided. It's something to be embraced because it means you're trying. It means you're moving forward. It means you had the courage to step out, to take a risk, to believe in something. And that kind of courage, that kind of faith, it never goes unnoticed. Even if the outcome wasn't what you hoped, your effort wasn't in vain. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in life come on the other side of failure. It may feel like you've taken a step back, but what's actually happening is preparation. The foundation is being laid. The soil is being turned. You're being set up for something greater. Failure isn't the end of your story. It's part of the journey. It's part of the becoming. You said ChatGPT said, delay does not mean denial. Just because something hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. We live in a world that thrives on speed, instant results, fast answers, quick success. And when things take longer than we expected, it's easy to start questioning, doubting, even feeling forgotten. But often the delay is not a rejection. It's divine time. It's a season of preparation, not punishment. What feels like waiting is actually working. What seems silent is not inactive. Sometimes we pray, we believe, we give our all, and still nothing seems to change. The door doesn't open. The opportunity doesn't show up. The breakthrough doesn't come. But that doesn't mean it's a no. It might just be a not yet. Timing is everything. A blessing given too soon can become a burden. A door open before you're ready can lead to pressure you're not prepared for. There are things being developed in the delay that you can't see. Strength, patience, character, resilience. Think about Joseph in the Bible. He had a dream as a teenager that he would be a leader, that people would bow down before him. But after he received that dream, his life went in the opposite direction. He was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown into prison. It looked like the dream was denied. But the truth is, it was delayed. God was still at work even when Joseph couldn't see it. And in the right time, not one moment too soon or too late, Joseph was elevated to a place of leadership, second only to Pharaoh. If Joseph had gone straight from the dream to the palace, he wouldn't have been ready. The delay shaped him. It tested him. It humbled him. It prepared him to carry the weight of the calling. The same is true in our lives. There are dreams, promises, and answers that are on the way, but they're being delayed for a reason. Not because you're not worthy, not because you've missed your chance, but because the time isn't right just yet. Delay is not a sign that you're forgotten. It's not proof that nothing's happening. In fact, it may be a sign that something bigger is being orchestrated behind the scenes. You might feel like nothing is moving, but God is aligning people, opening doors, shifting things that you don't even know about. What looks like a dry season may actually be the root season, where things are happening beneath the surface, where growth is invisible but real. And during the delay, your job is not to give up. It's to stay ready. Stay focused. Keep your heart right. Keep speaking life over your situation. Don't let the waiting make you bitter. Don't let disappointment harden your heart. The right time is coming, but how you handle the delay matters just as much as the destination. Sometimes the delay is about you, but sometimes it's about others. Maybe the opportunity that's meant for you is still being built. Maybe the people who are supposed to walk with you haven't arrived yet. Maybe the resources, the connections, the timing, it's all still aligning. If you rush ahead, you might step into something incomplete. But if you trust the process, if you stay patient, the delay will lead you to something better than what you could have forced. You're not late. You're not behind. You're not missing out. You are right where you're supposed to be, learning what you need to learn, growing into who you need to become. And when the moment is right, what's meant for you will not pass you by. Delay does not mean denial. It means the promise is still alive. It means the best is still ahead. Keep standing, keep hoping, keep preparing, because just like the seasons, the appointed time will come. You said, ChatGPT said, persistence unlocks the blessing. Sometimes the difference between breakthrough and burnout is simply the decision to keep going. Not because it's easy, not because you feel like it every day, but because something in you knows that what you're believing for is worth the fight. That the dream planted in your heart wasn't random. It was placed there on purpose, for a purpose. And if it was planted by purpose, it will be fulfilled by persistence. We often look at successful people and admire their talent, their charisma, their brilliance. But more often than not, what really sets them apart isn't just their gifts. It's their grit. It's the fact that they kept showing up when it would have been easier to quit. They stayed faithful when nobody was watching. They held on to their vision when no one else saw. That kind of perseverance is powerful. That kind of persistence, it draws favor. It attracts open doors. It leads to results. There's a story in the Bible about a woman who had been bleeding for 12 years. She had spent everything she had on doctors and nothing worked. She could have easily given up. She could have accepted her condition as permanent, but she didn't. She pressed through the crowd to touch the edge of Jesus' garment, believing that even a moment of connection could change everything. And it did. Her persistence made the impossible possible. Her determination unlocked her healing. That same principle is still at work today. When you persist, when you keep believing, keep working, keep moving forward, even when it's hard, you set yourself up for miracles. You give space for grace. The blessing might not come on the first try. It might not show up in your timing. But if you refuse to give up, you position yourself to receive what's already been promised. Persistence means praying even when the answer hasn't come. It means showing up to the job when you feel overlooked. It means loving people even when it feels like they don't love you back. It means continuing to work on that dream, write that book, build that business, even when progress feels slow. The blessing isn't always in a big leap. It's often in the small steps, the daily grind, the unseen efforts that compound over time. Think about the farmer. He plants the seed, waters it, cares for the soil, but he doesn't see fruit right away. There's no immediate harvest. But he knows that if he's patient, if he's consistent, the growth will come. That's how life works. That's how faith works. The seed has to go through a process. It takes time. But when you persist, when you keep tending to what's been entrusted to you, the reward shows up. The harvest arrives. The blessing is released. And here's something else. Persistence doesn't mean perfection. You're going to have days where you feel discouraged. You might miss a step. You might lose some momentum. That's okay. What matters is that you don't stay down. What matters is that you keep getting back up. Keep your eyes on the vision. Keep reminding yourself why you started. The strength you need is already inside you. You just have to keep it stirred up. You may not see it right now, but every time you choose to keep going, you're moving forward. Every time you show up with integrity, even when it's hard, you're building something strong. Every time you press past resistance, you're getting closer to the breakthrough. Don't underestimate the power of your persistence. It's unlocking more than you realize. You said, ChatGPT said, God is not finished with your story. No matter where you are right now, whether you're on the mountain or deep in the valley, it's not the end. You may have chapters filled with pain, disappointment, detours you never saw coming. But those pages don't define the whole book. The author of your life is still writing, and he doesn't leave stories unfinished. What feels like a period might just be a comma. What looks like the end may simply be a turning point. There are moments in life where it's tempting to believe that we've missed our chance. We think, I've made too many mistakes, or too much time has passed, or I should be further along by now. But those are lies that try to keep us stuck. The truth is, if you're still breathing, God's not done. There is more ahead for you, more joy, more purpose, more opportunities, more redemption. Look at the lives of people who seem too far gone, too broken, too late. Moses thought his time had passed after fleeing Egypt. He was out in the wilderness for 40 years tending sheep. But that wasn't the end of his story. At 80 years old, God called him back to lead a nation out of slavery. What others would have written off as the closing chapter, God used as a new beginning. Maybe you faced loss that you didn't think you'd survive. Maybe you're walking through a season where everything feels quiet and unclear. But silence doesn't mean absence. Just because you can't see what God is doing doesn't mean He's not working. Some of the most powerful chapters in your story are the ones that begin in the dark. In the places of surrender, in the times when you feel empty and all you can do is trust. What's beautiful about grace is that it doesn't depend on where you've been. It depends on where you're willing to go from here. God specializes in second chances, fresh starts, clean slates. You don't have to have it all together. You just have to be willing to believe again, willing to trust that the story isn't over, willing to take one step forward, even when you're unsure of the path. Some of the most impactful stories are born from broken places. The beauty of a testimony is not in its perfection, but in its redemption. What the enemy meant for harm, God knows how to use for good. He takes what's been shattered and makes it shine. He takes the mess and turns it into a message. Nothing is wasted. Not the pain, not the delay, not even the wrong turn. When placed in God's hands, everything becomes part of the greater plan. It's easy to feel disqualified when life hasn't gone according to plan. Maybe you've walked away from things you now regret. Maybe you've let fear or insecurity hold you back. But the grace of God doesn't run out, and He doesn't call you based on a flawless resume. He calls you because He knows what He put inside you. He sees the gifts, the strength, the purpose, even when you can't see it yourself. You are not a finished product, and that's okay. You are still becoming. You are still unfolding. There is still more to write, more to do, more to experience. The disappointment may have shaped you, but it doesn't define you. The failure may have slowed you down, but it doesn't stop the plan. The delay might have discouraged you, but it doesn't cancel the promise. You are still in the middle of your story. And God always finishes what He starts. You said, ChatGPT said, silence the voice of fear and disappointment. Those voices, the ones that whisper, you'll never make it. You're not good enough. It's too late. They may be loud, but they are not telling the truth. Fear and disappointment are skilled liars. They echo your past, magnify your failures, and try to convince you that where you are now is where you'll always be. But you were never meant to live under the weight of those voices. You were meant to rise above them. Fear speaks in absolute. It says things like, this will never change. You always mess up, and no one will support you. But fear doesn't come from a place of wisdom. It comes from a place of insecurity. It wants to paralyze you. It wants to keep you stuck. Because as long as fear is running the conversation, faith stays silent. And as long as disappointment is driving your decisions, hope can't lead you forward. Disappointment is tricky. It doesn't shout like fear does. It whispers. It sinks in slowly. And over time, it can change your expectation. You stop dreaming big. You stop trying new things. You stop believing that something better could be around the corner. But here's the truth. Disappointment is a moment, not a mindset. Just because something didn't go the way you planned doesn't mean everything is ruined. One closed door doesn't cancel your call. One painful season doesn't define your entire life. You have the power to choose which voice you listen to. You can either agree with the lies or you can speak truth over your life. You can either dwell on the failure or you can declare, this is not the end. I am not done. I am not disqualified. Your words matter. Your agreement matters. What you speak into the atmosphere shapes what you expect. And what you expect often determines what you experience. When those negative voices rise up, you don't have to entertain them. You can talk back. You can say, if fear, you don't get to lead me. Disappointment, you don't get to define me. I may have fallen, but I'm not staying down. I may have been hurt, but I'm still here. Sometimes you have to encourage yourself. Sometimes you have to remind your own soul of who you are and whose you are. Even the strongest people hear those voices from time to time. But what makes them strong is that they don't give those voices the final word. They feel the fear, but move forward anyway. They acknowledge the disappointment, but refuse to live in it. That's where real power is found. Not in avoiding the storm, but in standing through it with your head held high and your heart set on truth. You weren't created to live in fear. You weren't designed to carry constant disappointment. Those burdens will weigh you down and rob you of your joy. But when you silence those voices, when you stop rehearsing the past and start declaring the future, something shifts. You create space for peace. You make room for vision. You allow faith to speak louder than fear. Don't let a temporary feeling make a permanent decision. Don't let a bad day become your identity. You are more than what you've been through. You are more than what they said. You are more than what didn't work out. You have wisdom now. You have strength now. You have something to say, something to give, something to become. But to step into that, you have to turn down the volume on the voices that try to hold you back. Fear and disappointment will always try to show up. But you don't have to let them take the lead. You have truth. You have the authority to shift the narrative and rewrite the script. And it starts with choosing which voice you believe. You said, 6 ChatGPT said, now is the time to try again. Not tomorrow. Not when everything feels perfect. Not when all the fear is gone. Right now, this moment is the doorway to a new beginning. You've waited long enough. You've doubted yourself long enough. You've carried the weight of past disappointments and unfinished dreams long enough. But something in you still believes. Something in you still hopes. That's not by accident. That's purpose calling you forward. Trying again doesn't mean repeating the same steps. It means stepping forward with new wisdom, deeper faith, and clearer vision. What didn't work before may work now because you're not the same person you were back then. You've grown. You've learned. You've healed in ways you don't even realize. The experience has shaped you. The delay has prepared you. And the time that felt like a setback was actually a setup for what's next. Too often, we wait for the perfect conditions before we move. We say things like, when I have more money, when I feel more confident, or when the timing is better. But waiting on perfect will only leave you stuck. The truth is, most breakthroughs begin in imperfect conditions. Most second chances come wrapped in uncertainty. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to take the first step. You just have to try again. There's a story in Scripture where Jesus tells Peter to cast his net into the water. Peter responds, well, we fished all night and caught nothing. In other words, we already tried. We already failed. But then he says, nevertheless, at your word, I will let down the net. And when he did, he caught more than he ever expected. The key wasn't in the effort, it was in the obedience. It was in the willingness to try again, even when the last attempt came up empty. That's how favor works. It doesn't always show up in the first attempt. Sometimes it shows up in the persistence, in the decision to trust again, believe again, move again. The blessing might be one more step past the place you gave up last. The opportunity might be on the other side of the no. The breakthrough might be waiting in the same place where you once faced rejection. Trying again requires courage. Yes, but it also requires vision. You have to be able to see beyond the pain of the past and into the promise of what's possible. You have to stop rehearsing what didn't work and start declaring what could. You have to shake off the shame, release the regret, and remember that your calling doesn't expire just because your plans got delayed. Fear will always give you a reason to hold back. No logic will try to talk you out of it. But faith will remind you now is the time. Not because everything makes sense, but because you're being called high. You're being pulled forward. You feel the stirring for a reason. That dream hasn't died. It's just been dormant. And now it's time to wake it up, to breathe again, to believe again. Oh, try again.